Table Talk. I'm so excited. I'm here with Michael Georges Jr., the General of Anti-Gravity, and I'm excited. And today we're talking about the battlefield of the mind. And I'm so grateful that Michael is here today to join us. So as I always do, I actually left my pad and my pencil over there. We're doing a little bit different today. We're not at the table. So we always do, the talk show at the yellow table. Today we're not doing the table. We're a little more comfortable, a little more chill today on this Sunday, and we're here on the couch. So Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much. And so if this is your first time watching Yellow Table Talk, I'm just going to give you just a brief history on why Yellow Table Talk exists. So in 2015, I was diagnosed with depression, and I began to experience some anxiety. And during that journey of recovery, when I mean by recovery, I'm not going to go in too much detail about it, but therapy and medication and even connecting with mentors to help me along this healing process that I was on, I began to meet other believers, other Christians, who also were struggling with depression, anxiety, thoughts of suicide. And in the beginning, I would say, wow, that's great, because I really thought I was by myself. I thought I was alone going through that journey. But then I began to realize, wait a minute, there's something really wrong with this. This is not right. It should be so many believers battling the same thing I was battling. And then I began to pray and ask God, what I could do to bring about that healing, or even information, tools, for us to use, practical everyday tools along with biblical, truths to get us through as we recover and heal through depression, anxiety. And so that's what Yellow Table Talk. Why yellow? Yellow is my favorite color. I love yellow. It's the color of friendship, joy, Yellow's a happy color, right? So, Yellow Table Talk. And so today I'm here again with Michael George. So if you have your pad and pencil, go ahead and get that ready. You know how we do. It's like this all the time. You're going to take down some notes. I know Michael has some truths that he's going to, drop on us today, and I'm so excited about that. So, Michael, all right, so tell me, I just realized you're not even from North Carolina. Where are you from?
I reside here now from New Jersey, by way originally from New York.
Okay.
Bronx, New York, to be exact, Boogie Down. Yeah, I've been here about 9 years. It's 9 years, going strong. Matter of fact, July 6th of this month made it 9 years.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so look, I gotta tell you where I first saw you. I gotta tell you because I held on. I'm telling you why you're here today. I saw you in action at Orange Grove.
Wow.
At a birthday party. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but it was at a birthday party.
Exactly.
And I was invited to the birthday party. And so Michael was there, and he ministered in music during the birthday party, and he shared his testimony. And I held on to that testimony since then. I don't know how many years ago was that.
I know you said you wouldn't say no names.
I know, right? I know.
To keep from saying the names, I just had to remember
how old that person was at that time. They were still in high school.
Might have been their 18th.
I think it was.
I
think it was the 18th birthday.
So that might have been almost 4 or 5 years ago. That might have been.
More than that.
Probably.
Right? It could have been more than that.
That's a good question.
But look, you shared your testimony, and I held on to that testimony.
Wow.
And I was just like, now, granted, I never thought about, doing talk shows.
Right,
that was
right,
not even.
Right.
As a matter of fact, at that time, I wasn't even diagnosed at that time, But we didn't even meet. I never introduced myself to you, nothing like that.
Right.
I enjoyed your worship, and but I held on to your testimony.
I remember that night.
I held on to your testimony, and then you were doing a Facebook Live concert not too long ago, maybe a month or so
Like in
ago,
April,
right?
this year. Yes, ma'am.
This year, and I had watched. You did two.
Mhm.
You did two No, wait a minute. Did you do two concerts? Because it was two different times I was watching you.
We did one concert ourselves.
Okay.
And then another time we went live just to go live. Probably I think we were just ministering somewhere and just decided just to go live like we normally do.
Right. And so I was watching, and it's like God has brought it back to my remembrance. I sat there and I said, I gotta have Michael on my show. How am I going to?
Wow.
How will you have Michael on my show?
It's inevitable.
And
at that point.
I was so nervous. I was telling my husband, and I was just like, I don't know if he's gonna come. I mean, I'm like grassroots. I'm in the beginning stages of this. I'm like, I'm gonna get Michael Georges on my show. So I was.
Ain't nobody but a black man with gas, man. I promise you. That's all. It's indigestion. That's all I got. It's indigestion. I promise.
So I was like, how am I gonna make this happen, Lord? You know, so I was like, okay, this is gonna be a step out on faith to try to get Michael to come, you know, to be a guest on my show. So I'm happy that you are here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. For real.
So you're not from North Carolina, and I just want to jump to your testimony.
Yeah.
You shared a testimony of depression yourself. You experiencing depression, and within that testimony, you even talked about suicide. And I want to say you attempted.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that mental health and how it has impacted your life.
For me, I think it would have to stem all the way back, even prior to the actual season where I felt and I guess realized I was struggling with depression and things from my self-esteem being very low. And I think it was a plethora of things that I felt during that time as a young teenager, but it stemmed even back to the earlier days as a kid, just different things that I experienced growing up, being around projects, just the different things that I had seen that I probably shouldn't have saw as a kid, you know, and things I experienced as a kid I shouldn't have. I tell my testimony now, especially now, clearly because we don't overcome by the word of our testimony.
Right. That's right.
So I am the type of person, I'm an open book, and however I can, you know, minister to somebody and be an encouragement and inspire somebody else, let them know, listen, everything I've been through, and I'm still here to be able to talk to you about it. I'm a living witness, and so I think it started when I was about 6 or 7, and I struggled. Really, I don't think I had an identity crisis at the time. I feel like I was just I was a happy little kid. Well, I thought I was a happy kid. I was always told, you were such a cute kid, such a cute baby, but just bad. And the older I got, the more I realized, I was bad. I was pretty terrible. You gotta meet my family. I'll tell you something different. But I was, and I was always a peculiar kid. I was gifted, at a young age and stuff. And so one of the
you
things,
already look different.
Yeah, I was always different,
felt different,
doing stuff different. I naturally gravitated to older people, like elderly people and things. And my great grandmother, God rest her soul, God bless her, and she instilled in me a lot of things at a young age. She started me on drums at like 2-3 years old.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay.
I always tell
drums,
the story.
just playing drums, just in general, or like drums in the church, or what?
So I always used to play. I used to bang on like pots and pans, and used to take the Lego boxes, different things, and set up a drum set at the house and things like that. And my grandmother, Helen Kirkland, God rest her, and even my great grandmother, all of them, they always realized, man, I always could keep a beat at a young age.
Okay.
So one day I was with my great grandmother at a funeral, because she was always been the late Reverend Dr. Mary Washington. She always was very known for facilitating homegoings.
Okay.
And so she used to go to them a lot. Her and my uncle, Bishop Freddie Washington, if you're watching, God bless you all, love you, in New Jersey. And they used to do funerals all the time. And I never really quite understood it as I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I understand it now. And I appreciate doing funerals now. Like, people ask me, I'm more than welcome to do it. And so what happened was, one day, she was at the funeral and I was with her, and she literally was on the organ and called my name out while she was on the organ.
wow.
Told me to get on the drums. Told me to get on the drums.
Now, how old were you?
I had to be 3 years old.
What?
I had to be three. I had to be about 2 or 3 years old. I forgot the exact age, but it had to be about 3 because and I wasn't big enough to be on it, a full drum set. So we had the old seats where you had to spin them so they can get taller or lower. I had to get all the way to the bottom, to the lowest point. Couldn't see over top of the toms or anything, but in the funeral, that was my first time playing a full actual drum set, and nobody kicked me off. And so from that point on, I've been playing music ever since.
Oh,
And
wow.
and so like because of being around her, other elderly folks, it was just I was always just a peculiar kid, always
Right.
different. And one of the things I kept for about 20 years, I actually testified about this some years ago as well. About 20 years, I was with a close family, that was close to my family, and I don't go into detail, but one of the things I experienced very traumatic as especially as I got older, was molestation. Not by necessarily just a man, but his wife as well. And I kept this to myself for a long time. Never told my parents, never told none of my family. I just kept it to myself.
Now, tell me again, this was a close friend.
They were close. They were pretty much like
So,
extended family
it's
to
kinda
the
like
family. At that time, you couldn't tell the difference whether they were
Right.
blood or not, in my eyes especially. And it was something that it really traumatized me for a long time. It took away my innocence. Lost a whole lot of me, with the addition of other things I was doing and involved in as a child myself.
How old were you at that time?
I was 6. I was 6. I was 6 years old, and I think it literally was 20 years. I was about 26 when I actually first testified about this,
Wow.
and so it hit me hard for years. Between that, other things I experienced in the streets, and as I got older, being involved in gang life, things like that. I walked around with a chip on my shoulder. Walked around, felt like people owed me things because I felt like a lot of things I didn't get from others. Sometimes I felt, if I'll be honest, sometimes I felt shorthanded compared to some of my other siblings, other family members. They were what I consider they got the favoritism all the time, whatever it was. I'm not a PK, but I'm related to, bishops and pastors, and they had kids, and loved my cousins. But there was just a lot of things between them and my initial siblings, just family and friends. I always a lot of compare and contrast as a kid. And
So how many you had siblings?
so I have 6 siblings.
Okay.
I have 6 siblings, 3 boys, 3 girls.
Okay.
I'm the oldest of all 7.
Wow.
I'm the oldest of all 7.
Okay.
And 3 of us with the same mother and father, other
Okay.
4 with just my dad. And so it's things like that, experiencing and being around. I'm a different breed. That didn't really affect me. I know it affected my siblings to some degree. It didn't affect me the way it affected them. Because one, really, I'll be honest, I had my own stuff I was dealing with and battling with. And I call it the Michael Jackson syndrome, where I felt like I had to grow up much further and faster than I wanted to. Yeah, and so during those times, as I got up until a teenager, is when I really battled with a lot of self-esteem issues, feeling like I wasn't good enough, wasn't validated enough from others, looking for validation from others.
From anybody?
Honestly,
You mentioned a gang, so were you in a gang at
that
the
was
time?
I
They
was involved.
validated you?
That was a validation for me. It was a mixture between family and just my homies because they were related to me, but we all were part of the same gang. And so it was just a lot of things. That was one of the things I felt validated more than anything, because I felt like my family that I was around, being forced in church all my life, and it was a family church too. So excuse me. So it's feeling like I wasn't really validated by them, not really appreciated. I think a lot of times us as parents, we are unintentionally not mindful of our children feeling appreciated. We feel like because we're the parents or because their kids, they don't struggle with too much. They don't deal with too much, or they don't think too much about some of the things we think about, or feel like they're being appreciated or loved by their parents effectively in comparison to somebody else.
Yes.
And I learned that back then, feeling that same emotion. So I'm very mindful of that with my children, and making sure I let them know that their father appreciates them for who they are. They don't have to do anything outside of what I tell them to do, but even if they don't do that, it doesn't make me depreciate who they are in my life. They are top priority to me.
Right.
And
so I just want to put in real
no,
quick because sometimes our viewers check in after we get started. So if you're just checking in, again, I'm with Michael Georges Jr., the General Anti-Gravity. And so he shared his testimony, and man, it has been powerful already. A lot of things I did not know. Now, I only heard part of this testimony. I didn't hear all of this. But, he's being transparent. And one thing I'm grateful that he is willing to be transparent. And I'm just going to say this, as an African-American man, the stuff that he's sharing, I know it's not easy. A lot of our Black men are not comfortable with sharing trauma that they have experienced in the past, such as being molested. And so he shared that little bit of his past, and also growing up as a teenager, not feeling appreciated, looking for validation, and also being a part of the gang. And so going through that, now, were you in high school? Were you in school at this time?
Yes, ma'am. I was in school. I started off doing well in school. I think as I got older, I had pitcher's poison. I picked and chose when I wanted to do well and when I didn't want to do well. Particularly when I did well was during basketball season. Because I wanted to play. So I had to make sure I was on my P's and Q's. Other times, I struggled. And a lot of times I think I fluctuated with my behavior or my grades because I was in trouble. As I got older, I started getting more in trouble in school. Had the ability to do work, smart kid, always knew I was smart. I was told I was smart, or even if they didn't tell me, I always talk about 15 was a peculiar age for me. I remember it started even growing up, getting in trouble in elementary school and middle school, and I remember a teacher telling me that I wouldn't make it to C15 if I continued my behavior.
Wow.
And that stuck with me, as well as the trouble I was already getting in, the molestation, the battles of things that I was struggling, whether it be with my family. There were things, and I never really told my mother this or my father, but I remember times seeing stress or whatever that was going on them. And even as a child, I bear the weight of it, not realizing. And I think it was, like I said, as I get older, I realized these are the things I was doing. So taking on weight that I really had no business holding on to and carrying, which we do that a lot of times, especially as believers, whether you're in leadership or not. We carry weight that we really don't have the capacity to do. And I look at it as like, it's not about us picking and choosing everything to be the way we choose it to be. That's what I consider God weight. That's God weight. And we're not God. At the end of the day, we control our decisions, but He controls the outcome.
That's right.
And so I had to learn that because I got older.
Right.
And so even as a child, I used to bear things that I really shouldn't have been bearing for my family. Not just my mother and father, but other family members. I watched my grandmother, hard worker. She lives in Raleigh now. She moved there a couple years ago. Watch her working hard, and while she's trying to work hard, keep the house that she had together. All of the families going, doing different things and experiencing things. Whether marriage is acting up, other family members having issues out and about in the street, whatever it may be. And I felt that, and not knowing at that time, I'm spiritually feeling things that I really don't comprehend myself. So during those times when I remember my teacher telling me that I wouldn't make it to C15, that stuck with me for years. when I got to 15, I remember this was before I guess the depression really hit full circle for me. Remember being out there, still running around, gang, things like that. Kid, this is gang related. He was a Crip. I was blood.
Okay.
Came up on me one day.
I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was. I
No,
was
it's
about
all
to
right.
ask what
It's
gang
all right.
was in. I was like,
It's
I don't
okay.
know.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm delivered. I'm not a part of it. I'm not no more. And no, I don't downplay it now. I just look at it as, that was some people, whether they in it now or they were, that's their journey. That was my journey at the time. Still not fully knowing everything, but learning it as I went along, and also involved in other gangs. Because you grew up north, you had those popular gangs, and you had the ones within your neighborhood, in your city, your clique, your block, whatever.
Now,
So
what part of New York?
the Gun Hill Projects.
Okay.
Lord of God. Yeah, and I was back and forth a lot between Jersey and New York a lot, and other areas, Philly, Camden, the list goes on. But and so that experience being standing at the end of a barrel and gun, and I had a slick mouth. I always had, but I had a very bad mouth at the time. So at that moment, I wasn't thinking about, do I spare my life or do I plead for forgiveness? I said something I shouldn't have said, and the guy pulled the trigger twice, and I still have moments.
The gun is
In my face.
In your face, at your head.
He
pulled the trigger twice.
I still have moments where I can envision it, just random moments. And when I look at it now, or when I envision it now, I really thank God for His sovereignty and how He's kept me. That's why, if you ever see me minister, why I act the way I act.
Yes. Your ministry is radical.
Yes, man. Because I lived a radical life, and He brought me so far. So I was like, if you see me on stage or pulpit or wherever acting a plum fool, is because my worship is predicated upon not only my need for Him, but how far He brought me. And
I'm assuming no bullet came out because you're still here today.
Nothing came out of that chamber, man. And from that point on, it made so much sense how I knew, one, God had His angels on me. But more than anything, I think those are the times I think that's why I felt like it hit me. I guess whether it's depression, low self-esteem, I say between whatever I was dealing with, between life with my family, school, I called myself semi-popular. Everybody knew me or knew of me because I was gifted, I was talented. But then, I was going through adolescence. I had already been exposed to perversion, sex, and all of that. So having interest in girls and a lot of that stuff, and not being accepted, temptation, not being tempted and acting on my temptation with girls that I probably didn't really care for, but being turned down by ones I actually was interested in. So that played a big part in it. That took a toll on me more than what they probably knew. I tell some of those girls I went to school with now, I was like, I used to have the biggest crush on you. I know it don't mean nothing now, but it is what it is. And so a lot of that took toll on me. And for somebody to pull a gun out on me on something that had nothing to do with me, I felt like, why is my life valued? And
this is at what age again?
This is 15.
This is at
15. Yes, ma'am. This is 15. And even the testimony of suicide that I've talked about, that was at the same age.
So that was at the age of 15.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, when you were thinking about suicide, I know one thing is I do, because I work in behavioral health, and when an individual says you're thinking about suicide, we're trained to ask, how are you going to do it? What is your plan? And so at age 15, how are you going to go about that? How did you? So this was an attempt, or were you thinking about it?
This was an attempt. I actually attempted a few times prior to that. Understanding it now, I think the times I did it prior, I did it. I would say I did it for attention, but the funny part was every time I attempted, nobody was in the room. And at the moment of where I would try, I remember being in my aunt's house and I was there by myself trying to hang myself. The moment I tried to hang myself, I tried to kick chair from under me. The moment I was about to kick the chair from under me, she walked back in the house. And other times, like, so this particular time,
Did she know that when she walked back in the house? Did she know
didn't
this
know
what you were
going on.
trying to do?
She didn't know what was going on. She was trying to figure out. She was yelling at me, fussing, and everything else. But she got emotional, and between her screaming at me and went into tears. Just like, what is this about? What's going on? Ironically, I started taking anger management from the age of 13 until I was about 17. So at this age of 15, even while taking anger management, things like that, I was listening to what my counselor was saying,
Yeah.
but I wasn't really applying it.
So what did you, if you don't mind, if you go a little bit deeper?
Yeah.
You were taking anger management from age 13 to 15. So at 15, you're really attempting, you're really thinking about suicide. Sounds like to me you're coming up with different plans, different ways to go about it. And it doesn't seem to be working, okay? But what did you want? When you were going through anger management, if you could go back to that same 13, 14, 15-year-old boy, what did you want? What did you want from your family? What did you want from those who loved you? What were you in search for?
I believe one of the things I wanted, it was more affection, love than I ever had. From both sides of my family, I feel like they were providers. They knew to provide. I'm that same way. I just know to provide. Always knew that. However I can do it. Didn't matter how I got it, whether working a regular job, selling drugs, whatever. I need to get this money to provide.
Okay.
But I never really got a lot of affection from all of my family the way I felt like I should have gotten, or the way I felt like I wanted, I desired. I think I could say it was attention. If I added that to affection.
Okay.
During those years, I say it definitely, I can say it as freely as I can now. A lot of those times, I felt my family never really wanted me. They tolerated me. I felt like that for a long time. And it doesn't change how I felt then. Do I feel that way now? I don't know if that was how they felt then. And I don't think if there's anything that they can say now to change that feeling at that time. I just felt like, that's where I was at the time. They didn't always just say, they didn't really care much about me. They just tolerated me because I was there, or they needed me for something. I was also at the time, I did music, so I played drums at the church whenever they needed me. Sang when they needed me to do something, direct the choir, something whenever they needed. It was always, I was not that type of person, and I've never been that type of person like that feels the need to be needed.
Okay.
I just appreciate who I am, you know, and I just felt that at that time, I didn't really get much of that. I didn't feel any of that from my family because they're just providers. Like I said, that's who they were. And I can't fault them for that, especially now. It's who they are. And if you're honest about where you are in life, or when you come to the realization of where you are, where that person is, it allows you to understand it better and appreciate it. And so I never could fault my family for being where they are, where they were at that time. I can't fault them now. It was what it was, is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't, you know?
Right,
and so that's where I was at that time. And I feel like affection was something I looked for because of the things that, my innocence being taken from me. A lot of things.
And they did not know at that time.
Know, yeah.
So you were holding on to something and you didn't, but they didn't know.
It all comes back, yes ma'am.
Okay.
So because I never expressed these things that I experienced or that was, done by me, I can go down, even after the molestation, having family members or loved ones, whether they were blood or not, trying to throw themselves at me, from a perverted or sexual stance. And I never tell anybody. I just deny it. Like, nah, that ain't my thing. I don't want to do that. I'm good. I was like, I'm already, even at a young age, I shouldn't be doing this, or status quo says I shouldn't be doing this at a young age, but I'm already being fulfilled in that regard. So I'm good, and you know, and it wasn't just you know male. This was females, you know, older than me, you know, trying to throw themselves. I'm like, oh, I'm good, you know, I can say the way I want now because I'm grown. I was like, nah, I'm good. I just got, you know, I got this girl over here that I just got finished doing whatever, you know. So and that was my life back then. So at that time, that's something I really valued. You know,
you experiencing things very early.
Yes, ma'am. Like
you've seen some things, done some things.
Oh yeah, like sex wasn't an issue for me, in regards to trying to seek it from, I guess, people that were trying to get it from me in a sense, when they shouldn't have. They were adults trying to get something from me, you know, and things like that.
A lot of temptation.
And so, and I look at it now because even, you know, my kids, you know, my kids' mothers, they're older than me, you know, so it's like it all makes sense to where I'm at now and how things were, from being touched the wrong way, you know, not just by this couple, by a police officer touching me the wrong way, trying to, you know, frisk me, trying to search if I had something on me, you know, and didn't know he was perverted. I didn't know, you know, he was searching to see if I had drugs on me and touching me in ways he shouldn't have, you know, inappropriate. We didn't have social media back then, so wasn't nobody recording and doing other stuff, and you know, and so it was a battle, man. And I think by 15, I just felt like, you know, I probably won't get what it is I'm looking for as far as that affectionate love. I wasn't being tolerated by my homeboys. I went to them, so because I went and hung with them, by default, you know, I was like, oh, I'm good with it, but this is all temporary too. They wouldn't care if I was going or not. That was my mentality at the time. And even my family, they wouldn't care if I was going.
You already having those thoughts.
Yeah, I'm already there.
You're already there.
I'm already there. So you can't tell me nothing. Like people can tell me till you blue in the face, Mike, I love you, or this and that, I care. If I didn't, you know, I used to hear the statement from whether it's grown-ups, even sometimes my parents used to say, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't be, you know, keeping a roof over your head, or I wouldn't have been doing this and doing that.
They say that.
And I was like, yeah, and even that, I've learned so much. I tell people a lot, man. My parents have taught me so much. They're the greatest examples for me because I learned as I got older. Even at that age, I learned what to do, what not to do. So even me as a parent now, I learned from them. You know, they were my mentors unintentionally because I was a sponge. Like, okay, I don't want to do that with my children. I don't want to, or I want to do that. I want to have that same thing. And so like my mother at the time, I felt like, you know, she's an affectionate person, but she also was a provider because her and my father worked, you know, at that time. And at that time, by the time I'm 15, they separated and about, you know, no longer together and all this other stuff. And so
now you got divorced.
Yeah. So at that time, and like I said, that didn't bother me. Like you know, it hit home. In general, but it didn't bother me too much. It was just like I knew I was no longer getting the motherly affection that I felt like I should have had my whole life. Like I was getting a provider. She had to provide for the house, keep the house, you know, things like that. My father, whom I was much closer with, to this day, like my father, he lives with me now here in North Carolina, and so it's like I didn't have him around all the time. Like I stayed connected to my father. Compared to the rest of my siblings, the other 6 didn't have him all the time. I made sure I stayed connected to him. I always tell people all the time, listen, I didn't care where my father was. Somehow, Mike Jr. was going to find him. And he even tell people, he was like, yeah, I could be hiding under a rock somewhere, but somehow that boy will find me. And so that's one of the reasons why we always stay close, me and my father. But I never felt like I got it hands-on all the time. And so I like the suicide part.
How many times?
I don't know if I can pinpoint how many times I actually tried to that. Now after my time that I testified about at the age of 15, I never attempted anymore. Not to my knowledge, unless I was somewhere intoxicated. That was another nugget that you include. So I was underage. At that point, I was underage drinking for a long time.
So alcohol.
Yes, ma'am.
Drugs.
Selling. I wasn't.
So now you're selling drugs.
Yes, ma'am. I wasn't taking them, but I was drinking at an early age. Going to school sometimes, hungover, you know, things like that, and still intoxicated, things like that. It was so bad. I talk about this now because there were times I went to church, literally, not just intoxicated, but I would have. I used to have Gatorade bottles all the time, and either a Gatorade bottle or a McDonald's bottle, and I used to mix whatever soda or drink with alcohol, and I would take it into church and be on the drums sometimes, literally playing.
They did not know.
Didn't know.
Are you sure that they did know that same thing to you about it, or they just did not know?
I'll put it like this: there was a time where they thought I was smoking, and I said that's the wrong drug y'all need to be worried about. I literally could have told them like, y'all worried to think about if I'm smoking, but this bottle that I'm having in my hand while I'm talking to you has alcohol in it, and so. Wow. It was a rough time for me, and there's a lot of things like I can reveal it now because I'm beyond that. God has grown me and developed me. I went through all that stuff to get where I'm at now.
Right.
And it was so many things that I kept from everybody. I was I'm a private person to a degree now. Back then I was secretive and sneaky, and so I gotta tell you about it. So I was 15 years old at this point, and one day I was in my mother's backyard. My mother didn't know at the time. I used to carry I had 2 guns at home, illegally, of course, a 38 and a 45.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you just say 15?
Yes, ma'am.
And you carrying guns?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I used to keep the 45 in this. We had this built up little shed in the backyard of my mother's house, and I used to hide it back there. And one of my cousins used to hide his back there. We got it from our big home. So, but we hid him back there. One day, I remember leaving school, and actually I got in a fight that day. After I got in a fight, one of my aunts said something, real out of pocket, because me and my father were so close, and I love my father. Like even in his wrong, you couldn't tell me nothing about my father, because first off, anything he did wrong, I told him about it myself. So that's like, you ain't telling me nothing new about my father. I was very protective. I was like, listen, yeah, he might be jacked up, but I'll tell him he jacked up. I ain't gonna let you tell me. You can't tell me about my dad. I already know what my father is. I know about my family. And so, but it was one of those things. It was like, you just like your father. I would never reveal which aunt, says that, but so just like my father, and all this other stuff. All that stuff really hit hard for me. And I stood back there one day. Went back there by myself. I think my youngest cousin, not my youngest, at the time she was a little kid. I ain't gonna say her name either, but she was in the house. Her and another kid, who's a cousin, they were in the house. I came out back, and I went back there, slightly intoxicated, not fully. Took the gun, and I remember with tears in my eyes, trying to pull the trigger on myself. I call it the beauty, was me and my cousin had the same gun back there, but I grabbed his gun, and his gun was empty. Mine wasn't. When I realized that I had his gun after I pulled the trigger, I cried again, but it really went full circle for me in regard to, it's like, man, me trying to take my own life really isn't going to solve it. I have to figure out what it is that I need to do to really just make better for myself. Sometime in the past, after that, I still struggled to some degree with school. By this point, I transitioned from New Jersey to Delaware, moved to live with my father and my other siblings. transition there and struggled, some different struggles there. Because by this point, when I transitioned, the only reason why I transitioned to Delaware was because I got expelled out of school.
Okay.
And so, a lot of those things really took turns in my life. And when I got to Delaware, I felt like that was going to be a time for me to turn around.
Okay.
I felt like I was going to be turning around my life, doing some things better. Some things, there was a lot of things that I was still working on. I still needed to figure out. Living with my father at that time, he's always my coach. My dad was always like a coach to me. So he gave me what I consider tough teaching. He gave me the leeway to figure things out.
Make mistakes.
And, it's like, man, you got to figure it out. You got to figure this out. It was some things he did teach me or tell me. A lot of stuff he really allowed me to learn on my own. I appreciated him for that because it taught me even furthermore the stronger aspect for hard work.
So what, wow, so you had dealt with some serious trauma, but the experiences that you had left or fed into those feelings that you were having
Yes.
of the need to be, validated, need to be appreciated, loved. It sounds like you just want to feel genuine love. So when did it all hit just in your life and you just said, you know what, it is time for me to make a change. I need to get things right. I need to do better with myself. So when did that happen and what did that look like for you? What was involved with that? Did it mean talking to your family? Did it mean therapy? Did it mean, what happened?
I was seeking counseling from 13 until I was about 16, 17. And a lot of that stuff that I learned talking to Mr. Mike, his name was Mike, my counselor. One, a lot of that stuff didn't really comprehend until about 2-3 years later.
Okay.
A lot of that stuff it all pretty much I gathered like, okay, this is what he was talking about. Okay, I get it now. That stuff really didn't fathom for me until about 3 years later. And by that point I was no longer in Delaware. I had transitioned back to Jersey. Couldn't go to high school in New Jersey any further. It was my senior year while I was in Delaware. I had to go back. Could not attend high school in New Jersey. Went to adult school. And I was supposed to be there for about a year and a half. I had a tutor at the time. Each student had a tutor. The tutor knew of me, but didn't know me personally. We were talking while he was doing my work. He asked me a question like, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" I told him about all of my different things I was dealing with. And, and he pretty much said to me, "So basically, you know better, but you didn't do better." And so, long story short, I was supposed to be in school for about a year, full year, like school year. I literally was in adult school for about 3-4 months. He signed my paper to go take the test to go get my high school diploma. I took the test. The test takes about an average of 4 hours. The full test takes 4 hours. I was done in about 2.5.
Wow.
Finished the test, left early. They told me I passed with flying colors. They told me I could have walked with either high school that I attended in New Jersey or in Delaware. And I gracefully declined and said, just mail me my diploma.
Okay.
That, for me, was one of the transitioning points where I just figured out, honestly, with the help of Christ, I had to start depending on, I would say I had to depend on me,
Okay.
but really depend on him to provide however, whatever it is. Like, that's one of the reasons why I didn't walk. It was selfish. I can say it now, it was selfish. I didn't want to walk with neither one of my schools. Because because I felt like me walking was for my family.
Okay.
I was like, and that's for y'all.
Mhm.
When I got kicked out of school, I didn't feel like any of y'all were there. Y'all just shipped me to my father.
Okay.
So let this be for me. You know,
Okay.
it was like, this is for me. I accomplished this. I did this myself. I did this without any of y'all help, any of that.
So when did Anti-Gravity start?
Oh,
Like,
oh,
when did that happen?
man.
When did you get into music? And was music part of your healing journey?
Man, I tell anybody to this day, God and music saved my life. So I wanted to play basketball. That's what I wanted to do growing up. I was like, I want to be a ball player. I just knew I was going to go to college, play in college, and go to the NBA, you know, be good. I wanted to major in biology, all that different stuff. Music was always a part of me all my life. My mother's side of the family, all of them are musically inclined some way. Sing, play an instrument, both, whatever.
Wow,
I was around it all my life.
In your blood.
Yeah, it was always around it.
Okay.
I always wanted it to be a hobby.
Okay.
You know, I never thought that music and ministry would be a full-time thing. Never imagined that. Anti-Gravity came about. It's been 6 going on 7 years, and at the time I was here as a member at my church. At the time we were Greater Word Empowerment. And my spiritual father, Apostle Spence, God bless you, Pop, if you watching. He changed the name to just Word Empowerment not long ago. But at the time, I was just serving as a musician there under him, and for my god brother, one of my best friends as well, Pastor Will Rhodes, who now lives in Atlanta. And I literally just was comfortable just being a musician, serving behind them. I fulfilled myself serving the others, especially as a musician, being in the background. The validation and all that stuff, like I felt like a lot of that kind of died down for me. And I just said, listen, just let me be a musician, serve others. If you can hear my sound, I'd rather you be seen. I'd rather be heard than not seen. And so I was comfortable doing that. And as I did that more, they knew I could sing. They knew I had the ability to sing and things like that, but it wasn't a desire. Like I didn't want to be an artist. I didn't care nothing about that. So I would say there's 3 specific people that really spoke into me doing ministry as far as being a singer. Will Rhodes, Apostle James Spence, and unintentionally, but also prophetically, my manager / big sister, Lucretia Catlin. She was one of the first people that kind of pulled me out, put me on the forefront at one of her events to sing. And I was like, why are you doing this? But she did it. My brother Will, he used to have this event called Worship Encounter. He brought me up to sing when I was originally just a musician. And so even out of worship, I would serve with my dad. He would be putting a microphone in front of me during an altar call or before he gets up to preach. And I'm like, why are y'all doing this to me? I don't want to do this. Like, I'm good.
God is slowly moving.
Yeah.
The path that you're supposed to be on.
And the more and more I did it, the more I got comfortable, I guess. But I was, at the time, I was also with an alternative rock band. I was a music director. I helped with additional vocals, but I more so just played, did the music. But then that kind of slowed down. Over the years, started about 7 years ago, God just really started giving me songs to write. And I'm thinking I'm writing these songs for other people, like for my brother Will, for my mom, for other artists that I could think like who would kill this song. Like, oh, I can write this, they would murder this. And every time I finish the song, God would say, that ain't for them. It's not for them. It's not for them. And
it was for you.
Yeah. It's one particular song, and this song will never get old. It's probably the first single that General Anti-Gravity, not probably, it's the first single we had. The song was called You're So Good. And it said that you are strong, you are mighty in all your ways. And I will bless you, I will praise you for all my days. I wrote this song while I was homeless.
Wow.
And, it always amazes me. Anytime I hear this song, I get emotional. I might not cry, but anytime I hear it, it's an emotional place for me. As a matter of fact, it's this real well-known ministry called Panamon. ministry.
Yes,
And
yeah.
a few years ago, they did their Panemon conference, and it was literally almost up to over 300 kids or whatever dancing to that song in
Stop
Greensboro, North
it.
Carolina.
Oh
I sat there and listened to them.
Oh man.
I was standing there hyped.
Were you
and
not wailing up?
in the middle of me hyped, I had to sit down while everybody else was hyped up, and I cried so bad because they had no idea. Like, I was in a terrible state in my life at that moment, mentally and emotionally. And to still write that song and say that God is still good.
Yeah.
That song will never get old to me. And so things like that, and the fact that I just never wanted to do it. I never wanted to do any of this, man. I started this ministry 6 years ago, like officially, and it really was just myself as a singer and 5 musicians. And so anybody that sees like on Instagram or Twitter, they see General AG 5. The 5 represents the 5 that started with me when I first started.
Oh, okay.
And so
I have seen that.
Okay. Yeah, and so it was literally just me and 5 musicians.
Okay.
And then later on, months later, sometime later, I added singers. And so it was a.
So that music sounds like to me that the lyrics that God was giving you when you thought it was for somebody else was for you. But that was healing.
He healed. It's amazing. It's amazing. I know other artists, any other artists that that write things like that. I'm totally sure in some of your worst times, God starts giving you words to write or a melody in your head, and that song will produce probably one of the greatest blessings that you have ever imagined. Whether it be CD sales, whether it be just somebody else being healed and set free and delivered, or awards, whatever it is. And I don't feel like I've won any awards, tangible awards or billboards, none of that with any of my music. But I know my music has and is affecting lives. It's changing lives, healing lives, because it started with me.
Yeah. Every
song, it starts with me. The song I wrote it a few years ago. Still hits home. It's called Restoring Me. And it's just talking about, for by grace, he strengthens me to finish the race and to endure anything that's bound me. And I know I won't be the same because he's restoring me and renewing me. Amen. And like that song, I don't even sing that song out much anymore because we sing that out. Matter of fact, funny thing is, that's the only song we sang at that birthday party.
Is it really?
That's the song we sang at that birthday party. I testified, but we only ended up singing that one song.
That testimony.
Yes,
I was from a testimony, but
we,
that song.
We only sang that song, and after we sang that song,
gosh,
it broke out.
It broke out.
Yeah,
I mean, you had, I believe it was some kids, some teenagers were shouting.
Yes.
I mean, when I tell you that was not your ordinary birthday party, that was a praise party. Bad. I mean, after that song, it just it broke out.
No more than.
Yeah, I know.
So
when let me ask you this, because I would listen to your testimony and the music. I can see how God was still ever present, but I also can see the healing that God was doing in your life. I can see the restoring that he was doing in your life. But I also see your relationship. You begin to know who God really is. I know for me growing up, I thought God was just this very, had a whip. Every time I did something wrong, I was going straight to hell. And I could do anything. It was a little white lie to whatever we considered a big sin. If I didn't get my life right, I was going straight to hell. So I know during my journey of recovery, I began to really realize who God truly is. Would you say the same for yourself?
I learned of God's his grace. I learned of his mercy and his sovereignty. More than anything, which all of that included, I learned of like his genuine, undying love. Through all of that time, all of the time and validation I was looking for, all of the sense of being or whatever I was searching for at that time, and he was the one that gradually in my journey showed me. First off, not only was I there the whole time, but I got this.
Mm.
You don't have this.
Right.
Your family doesn't have this. You know, your friends don't have this.
Mm-hmm.
I got this. I created a system for you to win. You just don't know what that system looks like. You know?
Wow. I
And
like
so
that.
the more and more I realize that, even now to this day,
Mhm.
I am so much a faith walker. That's how I moved to North Carolina, just from faith.
Just from faith. I
I
remember you
literally-
telling me, and you just came.
And I followed the voice of God. It was prophesied to me that I'd be moving. Nobody told me specifically where, except for two people. They both told me North Carolina. I both thought they were both crazy. And then my great grandmother, who started my musical journey, it always starts and ends with her. I never forget. It was March of 2009. We were having a conversation at my aunt's birthday banquet. And I did not know that this would be our last conversation. She told me that once I was always the special child, special grandchild. Told me I always was different. She told me one time she laid hands on and prayed for all of her grandkids, great grands. She said she remember her coming back and laying hands on me again. She told me when I was a kid that anything that I touched, I would excel in.
Wow.
And I didn't remember that until she told me that day. Between that and then the late Reverend Nathan Simmons, when I was a baby, apparently he was preaching at my uncle's church. And every time he walked by me, he just kept touching me, saying, "It's Jesus' baby. It's Jesus' baby." And so
they were already speaking that
speaking
over
it
your
up,
life.
and I never knew.
Prophetically speaking over your life.
I never knew it, man. So I think like just faith is some of the things he's allowed me to understand. That when you relinquish your own control for his, like I have to walk by trusting the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to walk that way. So after I talked to my great grandmother, she passed that next morning. And I felt like that was something that was pulling on me to make another faith move, or whatever sort. I fasted for a little while, had a dream of my own little image of God, my own image of God. I don't tell you my image of God, it was crazy. But I was literally having an intimate time with him, laying on his lap like a little kid. His words to me were, "I have something for you in North Carolina. I just need you to go and find it." And
now you're here.
I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, I'm moving later on. And so he's been the source of this whole thing. And and I love how I call him, I use this like he gave me this nickname.
Okay.
Weird Genius. Because I alluded to I'm just considering myself weird. But I always consider God a genius. I always say if you ask God for something, you pray to him for something, he doesn't answer your prayers in the time frame that you want him to be. That doesn't mean he's a bad God or that he's not God. That just means he's a genius. Because he realizes you can't handle what you're asking for at that exact moment. And even at that time, whether I was young, older, or whatever, there was a lot of things that I wanted or desired that I wasn't able to handle it. I couldn't. I didn't have the capacity to handle it. So I was like, he has been in the middle of it all the whole time.
Wow.
He's been in the core of it all.
So what could you tell a young man or a young lady right now that's watching that struggling and has gone through some traumatic experience in their childhood? What can you say right now to them?
Just run. No, I'm totally playing. Man, I would first say I was on a radio station interview some months ago with a good friend of mine who attends the River Church with Pastor Godby. He owns he's part of the host of a radio show. And something I said there, and that's the number one thing I can say to anybody really is, first off, whatever it is that you struggle with or dealing with, battling with, it is it's you that's going through it, but it's ultimately not for you. I'm a living witness to know that everything that I've dealt with was not just so I can boast about what I've struggled with or I've overcome. I made it over, but really that I can express to somebody else that he that begun a good work in
Yeah.
you definitely is capable to perform it, and he will finish it. You have to have the patience and the faith in him. The only way you have faith in him, the only way you have patience is to have faith in Christ. And understand that, like I said earlier, you control your decisions, but he controls the conclusion. And so nobody is immune to the journey that they have to endure. So it's you can pray about it, and I firm believer. Please pray. That's the best thing you can do. Just call it. It's just a conversation. It really is just a conversation with him. The same way me and my sister are talking today, it's a conversation
That's
with
right.
him.
That's
Because
right.
first off, he already knows what you're dealing with. He already knows what you're struggling with. He just wants you to confess it back to him. Once you confess it back to him, that's the opening and perfect time that he can begin the process.
That's right.
I look at the story of Lazarus. Lazarus was sick, very sick. Mary and Martha were bugging Jesus to come and do your job, do your healing, do your works, do your magic. And he had to wait all the way to the point of Lazarus dying. Even with that being his friend, he had to feel the pain and the weight, not just of his friend dying, but the battle of his sisters being upset at him. But all of that was for the sake of God's glory being revealed.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, whatever it is you might be dealing with now, I'm not saying that it's going to be over tomorrow, but it will be over in the right time frame.
That's
You
right.
just got to stay firm, stay steadfast,
Amen.
and believing that he will definitely
Yeah.
get you through it.
Amen. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on Yellow Table Talk, and I hope that you'll come back again.
I'm with it. Listen, I didn't even know. I know you said we didn't plan to be this long, but
I know
I got
it's a long
testimony
day,
for days.
y'all.
I keep
It's too long, but look.
I got testimony for days.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about the time I sprained my ankle putting butter on the bread. Like it was.
What?
No. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
let's say that for the next show. We'll say put butter on the bread.
It was bad.
Were you dancing?
I was dancing, trying to
Were
do a
you
dance.
happy? Were you happy to have
I
the butter
was.
on your bread?
Yes, I was trying to be like John Witherspoon with it. Hot sauce on my burrito, and it's a long story,
We'll save that for next time. We have Michael
It was-
George's on.
Two midgets.
And,
No.
look, we got a gift for you, Michael.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I do a lot of paper, so use
That's
all
all
the
right.
paper, okay?
That's
I do
all
a
right
lot of
with me.
paper.
That is all right with me.
And I had to talk to your big sister, and I had to tap in like, look, tell me what Michael likes. I need to know what to do.
Yes, ma'am.
You a mess.
Y'all don't know. Y'all don't know. Y'all don't know. Y'all don't know. Yes, see, these are not even what I would consider gifts. These are just like temptational. I'm using that word. I don't know if it's temptational obsessions. This is.
I'm telling you, I had to tap in, I had to call this sister, like, look, I need some help.
What in the
What does Michael
world?
like?
What in the? I'm a body armor. Listen, I'm sorry. Gatorade and
I didn't
Powerade.
even know what body
I
armor
appreciate
was.
I appreciate y'all season Powerade and Gatorade, but like,
I didn't even know what body armor was.
listen, they got y'all beat.
She said body armor. I was like, what in the
Yes,
world is
ma'am.
body armor?
This thing has changed my life. Like, I don't even like energy drinks anymore because of that. I was curious if I was going to get one of these shirts, and so I got. Yeah, I
Faith
like
is
it.
greater than fear, y'all.
I love it. Faith over fear. I love it. I love it all. This is good with me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thank you for
very
coming
much.
on
Thank you
and
for having me.
being transparent
Yes,
and
ma'am.
sharing your testimony. And I hope you all, gain a lot of insight from this testimony. We're human. We've all gone through stuff. We're all going to experience different things in our lives, but we are overcomers. And we're here for a purpose. And I just want to bring up, Michael's attempts of suicide with the gun in his hand. And then also, someone else had a gun to his head, but look, he is still here. So there is nothing that can stop God's plan. Nothing is going to stop God's plan in your life. Nothing, not at all. And so if you are in church and maybe, you're wondering what is all this for? What is going on? Who is God? I've been in church all my life, and guess what? It wasn't until my 30s that I believed that I really began to know who God truly is. So I encourage you to search God, talk to God, just like Michael just said, like we're having right now. Talk to God. Open up that Bible, read His Word, learn more about who God is. God is faithful. He is faithful, and the grace that He gives us each day. I thank God that He did not judge me based on all the mistakes that I've done, or judge Michael based on all the mistakes that he's made. God is just faithful, and He's patient, He's loving. So, thank you, Michael. Thank you for joining us for this talk show. I know it's a little bit longer, but look, when you have a testimony that's this powerful, we got to share it. We got to get it out, because it's for you. That's who it's for. It's for you. So, Michael, really quick, can you just do a quick prayer and pray us on out, and then, guys, I'll see you next Sunday at 4 o'clock. We're going to talk about recovering from addiction. Okay? So if you can.
Lord, it's me, of course, your crazy servant, son. Mike, I am coming, really, first off, just appreciating you for who you are, the sovereign God, the ever-loving God. Thank you for your grace and your mercy, your care towards us. God, thankful for this day. Thankful for all that you have done, and even what you're doing, what you will do. We're so grateful for that. God, I'm grateful for this segment, for this day, for this ministry, for this endeavor of the Yellow Table Talk. I thank you for Sister Sherry and Brother Chris and her husband. It's this family, God, what you have put in their hearts, and the vision of her to come to pass. I just pray even now that even as we've had this time, that not only this segment would be edifying and effective to someone's life, someone, it would help someone and inspire someone. But ultimately, I pray that this whole endeavor, this Yellow Table Talk, I call it just the ministry. I know it's a talk show, but God, at the end of the day, I pray that this ministry will not just be impactful to those who need this, but that it would expand beyond the horizons of their own imagination, beyond what they would think or even vision for this to be. God, I pray that lives be healed more than anything. God, I thank you for the lives that listen. Let the ears that hear this, let them be touched. Let them be strengthened. I speak healing on anyone's life, God, even our own. Those who feel like we've overcome or we've come past our struggles or the different things we battle, whether depression, suicide, addiction, whatever it may be. Even if we've gotten through or past those things, continue to heal us. Because I learned a long time ago that the healing process is continuous, just like deliverance is continual. It is a lifetime process, God. So continue to endure us for the process. Continue to sustain us through these times where we feel a pullback, where we feel uncertainty, where we feel anxiety, whatever it may be. Bring us back closer to you like only you can. Have your way in our lives, God. I pray that the lives that listen and are impacted by this ministry, that things will transform for them. And not only does it touch them, but it inspires and touches their families, that it speaks generations down and generations up, God, that lives will never be the same because they experience Yellow Table Talk. We give you glory for all that you're going to do. So have your way, and we'll thank you for it in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Thank you guys for tuning in. Look forward to next Sunday at 4 o'clock, Facebook Live, where we interview Elliot Palmer on creating a plan for recovery from addiction. So thank you so much. God bless. Peace out.